This meeting is being recorded.
My name is Erin. I'm one of the owners of Brewing Company here in Calgary, and got linked up with Jasmine through JEDI, so the Gateway for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. We have a small tap room and a brewing facility here in Calgary, and then we distribute around Alberta to lots of different places.
Okay.
I'm Becky. Even my name says Rebecca on the screen, but you can call me Becky. I'm one of the part of the founding team for 88 Brewing, which is here in Calgary. We also have a production facility and tap room here in Calgary, and we sell beer throughout the province of Alberta. I work more specifically in the areas of our marketing at 88 Brewing. And that includes sponsorship and community work as well. And I do, as a founding member, I do just sort of work part-time. I also work as a data analyst as well. So kind of have some aspects of other types of work as well, if that flows into anything too.
I'm Erica O'Gorman, and I am the co-founder at Annex Ale Project, located in Calgary. We do beer and soda. We have a tap room facility as well, and we distribute through Alberta and parts of the prairies. I do, my role at Annex is I chair the marketing. I also do a lot of HR work and just kind of daily operations as well.
Okay. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah, so if one of you wants to kind of kick it off, that would be wonderful. Tell us a little bit about the industry.
Do you want me to jump in? I can start. And I would say to Ken and Jasmine, we'll probably all have a little bit of different perspectives just from what we do and our relationships to the business as well. I'll tell you, I guess, a little bit about the brewing industry, and probably Erica and Erin will know a little bit more than me, but I think we have over 100 craft breweries in Alberta. And I would say the industry in Alberta, especially in Calgary too, is actually quite new. I'd say a lot of the breweries that we have here are less than 5 years old. So I always like to focus on that in this industry. I think about it as a lot in terms of we're just small businesses. So if you have any sort of experience or exposure or thinking around what it's like to be part of a small business, that's a really great sort of perspective to come from. We're all, under 5 years, we're constantly growing, learning. We're growing the number of staff we have, growing our production and things like that. So year over year, in my experience, there's a lot of change year over year. And so when we started 88 Brewing, a lot of things that you lightly think about, like HR practices or things like that, now and coming into, our 4th year, that's more at the forefront as we've grown from a staff of probably 10 to almost 40 people. So there's a lot of change and things as we grow, just as sort of a new industry here in Calgary.
Okay.
I'll let you both add to that too.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of that as well. We just, with kind of where the industry is at right now, is a lot of breweries are trying to develop their middle management because they've been around for 5 years. So they're mid-sized companies. Right now at Annex, probably a third of our team is kind of dedicated to management or administrative work. So there's a lot of processing of information. And I was kind of talking to an accountant last week from another brewery. There's just a lot of information that we have to keep track of because we're regulated by the government. And at Annex, we're kind of unique because we have a non-alcoholic option that we distribute wholesale as well. So we have the non-alcoholic soda. So there's a lot of accounting processes that we have to keep track of, and different ways to receive money. So with the AGLC, what happens is a lot of businesses will have to pay, most businesses have to pay the AGLC before they pay us. So we have a lot of tracking processes for who's paying the government, and then we receive most of that money back after they have taxed us. So we also have bottle recycling fees. With soda, we have a completely different method of payment because we can be paid direct for that. And it's keeping all these processes kind of distinct and unique, and having to guide our customers through payment processes as well. And then we have our tap room, which kind of operates as a bar or restaurant. And for 88 and Annex, we have restaurants in our facilities. Ours is a third party, so they run as a separate operation. But it is just a different revenue stream that also needs a ton of systems and processes, because we can essentially buy product from the AGLC to sell in our tap room. So there's a lot of moving parts in breweries, and I didn't even mention like the events that we go to offsite. And people are getting more and more strategic about how they can increase revenue through the products that they're selling. The government allows us to sell our products at farmers markets now. So our taproom license can be extended to offsite events, and we can sell cans of product that people can go home with. Before, it might have just been kind of an offsite event where we could sell product. But we can act as bartenders and vendors at farmers markets. So the government is getting creative in which breweries can participate and manufacturers can participate in the greater community, but it just adds a lot of logistics to our facilities. And maybe Erin and Becky want to talk more about that, but that's definitely kind of what keeps people employed here is all the logistics of running a brewery.
Yeah, I think,
I was just,
go ahead. I was just, Aaron, I'll let you speak too, but I was going to say, I think a lot of that, you know, I like to talk about that because people think about beer, they just think about making beer and the end product that comes out, but it is so much more than that. That is just one kind of piece of it. And there is a lot of administrative work and marketing and forecasting and financials that go into it too, that people don't necessarily see when they just sort of look at the business. So go ahead, Erin.
No, yeah, that was basically what I was going to say is the making of the product is obviously a very important step in that process, and packaging it into materials that we can then take it to market with are also very important parts of that. But the brewery itself and the industry really relies on a lot of other positions that are maybe a little more behind the scenes, kind of as Eric and Becky both mentioned. And maybe just for some folks, if you're in here and you're really unfamiliar with our industry, Erica mentioned it, the AGLC, so that's the Alberta Gaming and Liquor Commission, just in case you don't know what that is. That's basically the body that governs us and how we have to produce our product and how we're able to sell it. It would be the same governing body that works with casinos and also with cannabis in the province. And I know Erica had mentioned some of the like taxation on that. So just if you're not familiar with that, we're all very familiar with bottle deposits. We pay them every time we purchase a beverage container. That's part of that process is we collect those deposits and then we send them to the government. But we also, as Erica mentioned, we are taxed on our products, and that's just a liquor tax. So that would be something that occurs in every province in our country. It's just provincially regulated. So that governing body is what we have to work with on there. But I think really Erica and Becky covered the rest of that sort of industry and logistics side of it. Yeah, lots happens in the production facility, lots happens within our tap room, in our distribution of the product, and then also at offsite events like Erica mentioned.
Yeah, and I think it's very touch on what Erica said, is that there's kind of a lot of different sort of business units, or however you want to refer to it when we think about a brewery. I like to think of it as like it's a production facility. So there's people, who are doing, inventory management. They're ordering grains, they're ordering hops, doing all of the production planning, doing the physical brewing. And that includes, tasks all the way down to just sort of cleaning kegs on a day-to-day basis, to actually brewing beer, to packaging, all those kinds of things. And then we kind of think of our tap room as a separate area. It's like running a restaurant. Similar to Annex at 88, we have a restaurant within our tap room as well. So we're running tap room staff, so serving staff who have beer knowledge, serving knowledge, customer service, all that stuff. And then we have a restaurant side where we're doing, inventory management and planning for the food component of that. And then, we have sort of a back office, and that's everybody else that works within our marketing, our sponsorships, events, our sales director, our production director, all of those people sort of doing all those other components that come together. So it really is, it's a broad range of things that all touch beer, but there's a really range of skills that are make a really great group of people. And it's not just about understanding or having a big knowledge of beer. That's an asset, but it's certainly not a requirement.
That's good to know.
Jasmine, I know the next question was sort of like, what does a day look like? That will be a challenging question to answer, but maybe, I don't know if Erica and Becky, if we each want to take just maybe like a role and maybe a bit of an overview, or maybe like kind of you were saying, like a business unit, that might be an easier way to answer that question.
Sure. Yeah, but Erin, go ahead I can speak a little, well, me and Erica do sort of similar with marketing as well. I can speak more to that side. I bet Erin will give us a better overview probably of sort of production and sales as well, if you want to talk a little bit about a day in the life there.
Sure, yeah, and I'll obviously jump in if I miss something. So in my role at Born, I have, like both Becky and Erica as well, have held many hats just as we've grown. We've had to sort of grow with our business and kind of fill the voids where it's needed. So currently I'm our sales director. So a day in my life is all about taking the product that our packaging and production team have created and getting it out into the world. So we have two sort of main revenue streams on a wholesale side of things. So that's looking at retail liquor stores and that type of customer, and then also looking at on-premise, which would be like restaurants, bars, that kind of location. And it's my job to go out and meet these people who are running these different businesses, introduce myself and our products, make sure that they're familiar with what we have to offer, and then touch base with them on a frequent basis to ensure that they are keeping our products in stock, if that's on a shelf, or on a menu, if that's at a restaurant. And then also working with them as their needs change and evolve for their business, and making sure that they're aware of new products that we have available or seasonally changing things, that kind of thing. So that type of contact for me would include, email contacts, phone contacts, and then of course in-person meetings as well. And some of those accounts are accounts that we hold for a long time. Some of them are short duration, and it's really all about managing what we're able to provide, and then also what their expectations are, to ensure that those relationships stay positive and those can become those like long-term customers for us. And then from like a production side of thing, I have worked in our production facility, just as I'm sure everyone else on this call has as well, just as needed. But a day in the life of one of our staff here at the brewery and the production side of things, and that would include our brewers, that would include our packaging team, and then that would also include our delivery team as well. Brewers come in the morning. They're usually the first ones here, and their day really does evolve around creating that product that we're then going to package and sell. That includes things like recipe development, as Becky mentioned and Erica did as well, ordering ingredients to make that product, and then managing an inventory of materials to package that product, so kegs and cans as well. All three of our locations have a canning line, so we do our own packaging on site. So we need canning line operators to run those machines and ensure that they're working well and that we're maintaining them properly. And then at the end, once that product comes off that line, we also have a team of delivery drivers who are working to take that product, match it with our invoices that our sales team have created, and then getting that out to our kind of end customers out in the community.
Arakalia, I'll let you take the marketing. You've been doing it for much longer than I have.
Well, it's interesting because with marketing, and I'm not sure about how marketing operates at 88, and but I'm kind of in a unique position in which I work with a lot of contractors in marketing, and a lot of people in marketing departments might source out third parties to do social media or do brand design. At Annex, we work with a branding team named Daughter that's located in Calgary. So they design all of our cans and some of our bigger projects. So what a day looks like to me, which because I'm still wearing many hats as both marketing director, HR, and various other responsibilities. Kind of my day would kind of centers around like 9 to 5 on kind of weekdays, but can extend into the evenings if there's events and promotions that we're doing with our wholesale customers, so bars, restaurants, and liquor stores. So kind of a typical day for me would be coming into our offices, looking at kind of, planning our social media. And this is something that kind of happens in block work. So I might spend kind of 8 hours a week developing kind of a post for social media. And I manage our social media team. And so they're in charge of taking photography for social media. I do all the copywriting for the social media. I also work on beer releases. So I work with Daughter to get a can design made weeks in advance. So a can design would be getting the information from the production team, ensuring that I have all the accurate information and that the labeling requirements are being met, which are also regulated by the federal government. And so from start to finish, it can take sometimes 2 or 3 weeks, a couple hours a day just to keep the momentum going. And so I work kind of on a Gantt chart system to ensure that all the information is accurate and that I'm working with multiple departments to get this beer to market. So I would work with Daughter on that, but then I would work with the social media team to ensure that we're marketing the beer through our different platforms online. So I monitor our Instagram account. Facebook, we're no longer really all that active on, but a lot of breweries are still, they have to use Facebook as the platform in order to participate on other social media channels. We use Twitter, where there's beer related apps like Untapped that we monitor. And so I put information on these apps, but I also monitor the information and that is coming from customers to us. So there might be customer complaints or there might be really great feedback. I share a lot of social media. People take photos and do their own content of our brand. So I have to monitor that as well. And then there's kind of the promotional aspect to marketing as well. So working within the community, whether that's with our customers, direct to consumer customers, who we call beer drinkers. But in our case, there's also soda drinkers. And then our business to business kind of promotion and community work. And breweries are heavily involved in community. And it's great that I'm on this call with Born and 88 because we're very heavily involved in the greater Calgary community and growing into Edmonton. But we work with nonprofits, we work with other businesses that are trying to achieve community related goals as well. So it kind of is my job as director, but also as somebody in marketing to promote these activities, but work with other businesses and organizations to help achieve their goals as well. So in the past kind of couple months, we've worked with bars and restaurants on Pride initiatives. So whether that looks like making a beer for them or creating events at their business that we can help promote. When we work with nonprofits, I work with a handful of nonprofits. One of them is Direct Her Network, which encourages and educates women to join boards. And so the beer world is really great because we can promote other organizations through beer. So we made a beer for them, but we also did some kind of education and training with women in the industry on what it takes to be on a board, and working with more community related nonprofits. So working with the Women's Center, and maybe a portion of proceeds from a certain beer would go to them. We work with a lot of sexual health organizations as well, and sometimes there's monetary support, and sometimes there's physical support, going out to an event, pouring beer, and engaging with people through beer. And then, like I said, we do business to business. So the people that are buying our beer, maybe they're hosting a Stampede event and they want us to sponsor something. So we're giving away prize packs or whatnot, and we should go and participate in their bingo tournament or bowling tournament. And so there's a lot of team activity related to that. That's kind of sometimes outside of work hours for some people, but for the marketing and promotions team, they are heavily involved in communication with these organizations to ensure that they have a successful event. And now I'm like, what else is there? So maybe Becky, you want to jump in, but I've covered quite a bit.
No, that's really, I mean, I like Erica's description of that too, because you can just sort of get, the depth of understanding of how much goes into it, right? It's not, promoting and socializing our own products, but also, community partners. And it's so many different aspects. And I would just add it's very similar to what we do at 88, as Erica's describing. We're managing a large content schedule, right? So when we think about how we market and advertise, a lot of that primarily done is through social media channels. So we're setting up, long-term schedules, 2 weeks out, we have a content scheduled of photos and copy and all of that stuff. And then we're thinking ahead to what's coming up. What, if we're sponsoring festivals or, community initiatives, we're planning for that, coordinating with other businesses in terms of assets that we're creating. And that it includes lots of stuff too, right? It's beer, it's merch, it's promotional items. It's a wide range of things. And I would say too, from a marketing perspective, is that we're really touching base with everybody in the brewery. We're going to work with our sales team and sales director to think about what beer is going where. If we're going to sponsor an event, what beers is it? What's the inventory management for that? When we think about sponsorships and community initiatives, we have to work with sort of our entire team to think about the financials behind that. What can we afford to do? What can we afford to do in terms of sponsorships? What's the balance of dollars? We work closely with our taproom team as well to think about different kind of initiatives that we want to run in the taproom. Maybe we're just promoting a new beer, or maybe we're having some kind of tasting event at the taproom. So we've got to coordinate all of that. So really everybody is working together, and it's a lot of that administrative side. And I see, when I came to this role with 88, starting a brewery, I had never worked specifically in marketing. I was not a content creator, but these are all things that you can naturally learn and do on the job. And I think most important, that I've recognized really is effective communication and organization. And those are really two key things for me, marketing and beyond, that I've really seen sort of come to the forefront.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just
Becky,
kind
that
of,
seems like a
yeah.
really good. I was just going to say that seems like a really good segue maybe into that like next question that Jasmine had sent us, sort of what do we look for in a candidate? And again, I think that question, we do such a broad range of jobs within our businesses, and we sort of have these little business units within them as well. So again, an all-encompassing list probably would be very long, and we probably would forget some things, but I know Becky had just talked a little bit about like organization and that, and if you want to keep going on that, Becky.
Yeah, sure. Pardon me. When I think about, what we look for in candidates, I've definitely been a part of that process at 88. Over the 4 years that we've been hiring so far, I'd say we probably hire at least one position almost every quarter, whether even it's just sort of a smaller part-time role or whatever the case is. So we do hire regularly. And I've been involved in the interview process and setting up, what it is that we're looking to achieve through hiring. And I'd say, I mentioned that again, definitely communication and organization are key. And I think that you probably would find that with any small business, right? We wear a lot of hats, and we really just need sort of organization is key. And I think you'll find somebody who has a little bit, I need to see some flexibility too with people that we have at the company. With a small business, as we're often doing many things, we're sort of always kind of transitioning between things. We're learning, we're growing, and we're developing roles. So somebody who is sort of flexible and eager is great for us. And when I ask the team at 88, when you're hiring someone, like, what are you looking for? What are you looking for different kinds of roles? And people always just say it's passionate, it's passion. And, maybe that's just kind of a generic way. A lot of people would probably say that, but just taking a genuine interest in what you're doing is great for us. And that can be beer, and that cannot be beer. It's okay when we are looking for candidates. If you say, hey, I don't even drink beer, that's totally okay. We just want to know that somebody is interested in that. And when it comes to this industry in brewing, it doesn't just have to be beer. A passion for community is great. All of the breweries, especially the 3 on the call here today, are really focused on community, and having a positive impact on the YYC community. So that is something that's really great that you can bring passion to. Or if somebody showed up and said, I'm really passionate about like inventory management and organization, that's great. All those kinds of aspects can have a role in these businesses. We just want to know that you're really sort of, interested in something, and want to find opportunity and growth within what you're doing. High level.
For us at Annex, we've really kind of dug deep into kind of our company values, and kind of similar to that is that of what 88 goes through is, when we go through our hiring process, what we're really looking for is whether people are engaging with our company and understanding what we're trying to achieve. And so we have our guiding principles on our website. And so what we really want to see when people are applying to Annex is, do they understand what we're trying to achieve in a greater community? And do they want to be part of this energy as well? And so that can be seen as passion for some of the work that we're trying to achieve in the community and within the business community as well. So some of our guiding principles are integrity, sustainability, and are people picking those things out of our business? Being like, this is kind of this is in line with what I want to be surrounded by as well. And we find that the people who kind of see eye to eye with what we're trying to do as kind of some of the most eager and enthusiastic people for what we're trying to accomplish in the bigger sense. And so we don't, we have kind of a hiring process through a Google Doc that might ask for some pretty basic questions. You know, have you worked in hospitality before? But we don't take resumes right off the bat because we find it doesn't really paint a picture of who a person is, and we don't ask for a cover letter. We really want, the big question that we ask is, why do you want to work at Annex? Like, why is Annex unique to your job seeking, and what landed you on our website and engaging with us and wanting a job? So in that sense, we can kind of determine whether people are serious about wanting to work for us. And then after that process, that step, we would then, we wouldn't even ask for resumes until the very last part. Some of the jobs, like an accountant, we definitely need to see their credentials. But for a lot of people who are working in the tap room, for people who are working in production, delivery, even marketing to some extent, we may not really need to see those qualifications until the last step. And we ask for references and a resume at the last step. So we get to know people before we kind of see what the resume says, because it can be quite limiting for people if they don't have, or they might feel limited to apply at Annex, even though they're a phenomenal culture fit, they're a phenomenal person and very eager. If they kind of are intimidated by handing a resume that doesn't say they've worked at a brewery, or that they may not have production experience. So yeah, the passion to kind of work in beer and at Annex is a big part of our hiring process.
I would just say you guys covered mostly everything. I think we hire very similarly, I think, to both 88 and Annex, and we also we don't take resumes or cover letters with initial applications. Of course, if someone drops one off, we use that to be able to contact them. But if we're actively hiring for a certain position, that application process does not include a resume. We also hire based on our kind of core values, which are also listed on our website and posted in our tap room and on our social media. We post those on all of our job postings as well. And much like Erica said, the first question we ask anyone who is applying at Born is, why do you want to work at Born? Specifically, there are 35 other breweries in Calgary that you could work at. So why choose us? And a lot of the time that we're hiring, our hiring is seasonal and to some degree for lots of positions. So there's usually other breweries hiring at the same time. And we want to make sure that the right people are ending up at the right places. And like Erica said as well, a lot of the positions we hire for are new roles, and I know Becky mentioned that as well. So we don't necessarily have a specific set of qualifications or education that we require for those positions. It's really about that culture fit, and we're very willing to learn alongside someone and train someone to do a job. If they're a good fit personally, then teaching them the skills and giving them the skills or helping them acquire them to do that job, we're very happy to take that on as a business.
And I would just, as we talk a little bit about sort of what we look for in candidates and stuff, and then, to that, talking a little bit about like, how can I find out more about opportunities or the industry? A couple of things for that. And in my career history, through what I've done, I do think brewing is really special in the sense that it's a really sort of open and honest community. And if you go into a brewery, just for a beer, or just, go in, say hello and meet some folks, is that everyone is really open and really great to talk to. So if you were interested in just sort of asking some questions about 88 and working there, or what it's like, you could literally just walk in the door and anybody is open to a conversation. And I really think it is a good community in that sense. And something kind of unique to the industry. I've never really seen that in other sort of career avenues that I've gone down. So it's really great to ask questions and come in and meet some of the people that work there. And that really kind of adds to, you know, what Erica and Aaron say, is that it's about a culture fit. We're small businesses, right? So we've really got to work together successfully as a team. So the culture fit is really important. So just come in and ask some questions, get to know folks. Or if you see a posting at a brewery and, you know, go in and ask them some questions about it. Everybody's going to be really easy to talk to. And so it's, you know, it's not an industry that you have to be hesitant about, especially if you have no pre-knowledge, you know, just come in, find out some things.
Just add on to that really quick. We also, and I know lots of other breweries do this as well, just because of posting, we only might have one position listed on our website. That doesn't mean we don't want you to send your information into us or just drop us a quick line. So our We're Hiring page always includes a blank form that you can fill out that just is literally an introduction of who you are and what you're looking for and why you think you'd be a good fit for a job at Born. And then we keep those on file. And when we have things open up or we have an opportunity, then we can go back to that list of people who have expressed interest and we can say, hey, this position opened up. We think it might be a good fit. Would you like to come down and have a conversation with us about it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think coming and asking some questions can put you, you know, as a brewery gets a little bit older in years, there might be more processes around hiring and things like that as you develop more structure. But we have some great examples at 88 of people who walked in to ask questions 4 years ago and are now, you know, they're now one of the head brewers who, you know, so it's something that an experience and skill they didn't have. They walked in, met some folks, asked some questions, had an opportunity presented to them, and now, you know, are important part of the team, you know, getting to brew beer. And that was through all on-site education and learning and development. So there really is just sort of interesting opportunities that can exist. So it's a great place to just come in and see what happens too, and ask some questions. And that can be, you know, at breweries. And as you know, we're always out in the community too. Breweries do a lot of events and participation and stuff that's happening in the community. If you see a brewery and they've got a booth set up, same thing. You know, go ask some questions, let them know who you are, have a discussion. And that's a great way to get to meet people, grab somebody's name, stuff like that. It's just, there's a lot of simple conversations and everybody's really, really open to it. All right. Just thinking, one of the things that sort of Jasmine that we haven't touched on yet was just sort of how to stand out and sort of highlight what your abilities are and things like that. Do either one of you want to add any more flavor to that?
I would just say, it sounds so cliche, but be yourself. I think that most breweries that we are acquainted with and that we know well are looking for that culture fit, like Erica said. So coming to that, whether it's an interview or a phone call or an email, coming at that with your your genuine self is going to just be the best way to start off that conversation. And then I guess on our end as well, knowing what you're looking for and what that culture fit looks like for you is very important as well. And it is okay to say, even if something is offered to you, I don't think this is the right fit for me. And that won't be the end of your career, because I think most of us are looking for that, and knowing that from you and knowing that on our end is equally important. So yeah, knowing what you're looking for as well is important.
Yeah, that's a good point, Erin. And I would just say too, I always keep going back to that. We are small businesses, and we ourselves are growing our structure, growing our processes. So even if you might be interested in something, or you see a job posting and you think, well, I don't know if this is the right fit, I don't know if they can accommodate this. We might not know either, because we've never come across something. So, you know, sharing and being honest about who you are and what you're looking for is great for us as a business too, because we're still adapting and changing, and we might just come across something that we haven't yet had a chance to experience yet. We're not even 5 years old, so we're in a constant change and and growing and bettering what we do. So I don't think there should be any fear about being honest about exactly what it is you're looking for and making sure that it's the right fit.
Yeah, I think as business owners, we're constantly learning, and one thing that we really strive for is that our team does the learning as well. So advocating for what you need out of a job, I find is a really great step forward, because then we can have an open discussion and also learn a lot from candidates as well. What are they looking for in a job? Some of the best interviews we've had are people drilling us about what we can offer for our employees. And one candidate came to us a year ago and said, one of our questions would be, what would a previous employer say about you? And she said, well, what would your employees say about you? So, asking more information about what the culture fit is, and, what is the ideal candidate can be helpful, because I think the 3 breweries here are very self-aware, but some other breweries who are very new may not have the processes in place to kind of engage in that conversation. So having candidates ask about, if culture is important, what would a good culture fit look like? Who is the ideal candidate that you're looking for? Because while we can communicate what we might be looking for, some smaller businesses, some other breweries that are just starting up, maybe in kind of not the headspace of like attracting necessarily the best culture fit, but just needing employees at that point. But I think it's really important for people entering the brewery workforce that they ask these questions so that they understand whether the company is a good fit for them as well, and whether they can accommodate as well for what they need. And I think some of the best conversations we've had are employees being pretty honest about that.
I like that point when you say, what would your employees say about you? So I'm going to write that one down for myself. Next time I'm in an interview, I think that's a great question.
Yeah, actually, all 3 of you, everything that you're kind of saying about the industry and how everything works, and these kind of like interviews and casual conversations that can lead to employment and things like that, is not the norm in the employment world as far as like what the people we support. So do you guys do any sort of like marketing as far as like if you are looking for applicants, are you engaging a diverse and inclusive workforce? And how do you do that? And how do you make it known to participants that maybe do want a job, that you guys are running these awesome interviews that are informal and having a conversation and really welcoming, and you guys are welcoming those kinds of questions that somebody may not ask?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jasmine, and something I would say for myself at 88, something I'm trying to grow and better how that information gets out. I would say it's definitely for me kind of a challenge to think about, one, just how do people access the jobs that are available? And sort of as we grow as a business, I think when we started, you might have a job opportunity and you could literally just post it on social media to one channel, and get a bunch of applicants. And I said, well, it's not, but that's just one core group of people who are looking at what you're doing. So this last sort of 2 years, we're trying to expand how we get exposure to the types of jobs that are available and the type of industry it is. So we're trying to set up more and more channels for job postings. And that includes community boards, like, for example, with some organizations that we work with, like Skipping Stone and things like that, utilizing community partners to get the types of jobs that we have out. And just as much as we can, trying to share about what this industry is like, and that conversations are really open and welcome. And that for us, that's, you know, something like this, trying to share through a channel like this. We've done that with other organizations well, sort of like this similar style presentation where we can just talk to people about the type of jobs that we have available. So we're trying to expand on that, and always, you know, curious what others are doing, or curious where others seek job. You know, where do you look for jobs? Where do you look for listings? Always, that information is always great. And that's just from my experience with 88.
Yeah, I would add on to that as well. We really do try in our postings to communicate to potential job seekers about our process. So what will that interview process look like? We try and make that as just available and open to anyone, so that that doesn't maybe seem as much like a barrier. And then we have also more recently just put right in there as well that if you need an accommodation of any type, we would just ask you to just shoot us an email, a phone call, however you would like to communicate that to us, and then we will do what we can to ensure that we can meet that need. And then, like Becky said, we are always looking for new platforms to promote our opportunities on as well.
That's really awesome. Oh,
I would just say that we're doing similar things as 88 and Born, but I think we're always trying to learn how to engage with different community members, and I think also understand that we can't just go after or attract beer drinkers, because that's just not necessarily the people that it doesn't attract a very diverse group of people, because beer drinkers are traditionally white men, white able-bodied cisgendered men. So I think parts of the industry are fully aware that we have a diversity issue. And so I think we're all trying to figure out, as small business owners in the beer industry, how to attract different people to the industry. And that's kind of a continual process for us at Annex.
yeah, absolutely. And it, what you guys are saying is really meaningful, especially for the people that we get to support. And so it's like, there's almost like a barrier between the awesome things that are happening and the people that maybe need to know that these awesome things are happening. So yeah, just trying to gauge to kind of bridge that gap. Ken or iPad, do either of you have any questions? And if not, I have a bunch.
I know most of you are in Calgary, but for someone like me who's in Edmonton, is it as open up here?
Yeah. I would say, yeah, I think for all of us on the call, Ken, our breweries are based here in Calgary, but we all operate from Edmonton as well. So we have an Edmonton sales rep who works on all of our Edmonton territory, and we have reps for other Alberta. And we do have an employee ourselves in Edmonton as part of our sales team as well. And I think that's probably the same for both of you.
Yeah, just sales in Edmonton for us. I can't think of any breweries that have a double location, so Calgary and Edmonton. So our bases here are in Calgary, and some breweries like Sea Change have two businesses. So they have one in Edmonton and one in Beaumont. So it's pretty rare for there to be two locations for breweries, but there's a lot of remote work with sales, but that is sales and promotion. But so you might have brand ambassadors, but there'd be very few jobs outside of the core building of your facility.
Just to kind of follow up on that and answer Jason's follow-up question there. There are lots of breweries in Edmonton. None of them are on this call here today, but that does not mean that they are not doing the same work that 88 Born and Annex are doing. And I know I just list like a few that I know personally, and there's lots more out there. I just can't really speak to what they're doing, but Arcadia in Edmonton holds some of the same values that we hold, and I know that they run their business in much the same way that we run ours. Irrational Brewing is relatively new in Edmonton, but they're also doing some really amazing work to try and diversify the industry. And I mean, like there's a Campio up in Edmonton that are under the umbrella of Bear Hill, sorry, which is like Last Best and Jasper. So a much larger organization. And I can't really speak to their HR practices or exactly what they're doing, but they do have a few different locations, and they're a much larger company. So they likely have even more opportunity perhaps than some of our smaller folks. But yeah, if you look on Alberta Beer Guide, they have an Instagram and they also have a website, and they do put out a publication I think they're doing it biannually now, that lists all of the breweries in Alberta, and they map them out by location, and then there's a little blurb about each one, and there is contact information on there as well, and that would be a great place maybe to just start, even by looking at the map and seeking out some contact information for those places, and you could likely on their website be able to find any opportunities they have.
Thank you very much for answering.
Do you have any other questions, Ken?
Well, you guys are very thorough. I've got like 4 pages of notes now.
Right? Same.
Thank you very much.
I was just curious. We kind of talked like a little bit about the different positions. We work with a lot of people that are even just breaking into the working world, and so employment's kind of new to them. Do you guys, do you folks have more entry level, not a lot of experience, kind of want to get your feet wet, the brewing industry seems cool, let's see what happens here kind of positions? And what would they be?
I would say definitely, Jasmine, 100%. We have lots of positions like that. I'll get Erica and Erin to add to this too, but in my mind, a lot of times a really great place to start if you're interested sort of on the production side, and it can always change. You can come into the door that way and move into other areas, but just on our we call it cellaring, cellar person, somebody who's sort of starting washing kegs, helping with cleanliness, that kind of thing, packaging. Erin mentioned we all have canning lines, so we call it off packers essentially, which is helping to, as product comes off of that packaging line, physically taking it off and packaging it up. Those are really great entry level positions to get your foot in the door at a brewery. With us at 88, those can often be part-time positions too. So it doesn't have to be full-time hours. So it's a great way to, maybe if you work at another business or you want to work at 1 or 2 different establishments, it's a great way to do that. And then you get to know the folks that work there, you get to see the workings. And then from there, there's lots of growth opportunity to work towards full-time or finding, other positions that you're interested in. I think those are the most common for us. And then also just starting out in the tap room, customer service is simple enough. We've all experienced customer service. So somebody who's new to that and wants to just maybe serve beers in the tap room is a simple start. There is some qualifications. There is some things that are required for that. As we're government regulated, you have to have a certification to be able to serve alcohol and take a test or a program to be able to do that online, a test online that you have to take. So there are some qualifications, but even if you don't know about those or what those might be, certainly just ask a question if you see that job listing. But we have lots of entry level stuff happening.
Yeah, for us, delivery can be entry level as well. So it's, putting kegs and flats of beer into a delivery van and then dropping those off at our business to business accounts. So delivery tap room can be very entry level. We kind of have two positions in the tap room that we have in the summer. So one is a serving assistant and one is a server bartender. And the serving assistant, we've found success for people who may not have hospitality experience. They can start off kind of bussing dishes, loading the dishwasher, helping pour some flights, and get kind of familiar with how the room works and how people engage in kind of restaurant type experience, or in a room that is serving food and beer. There's a lot of moving pieces in a brewery in the tap room. People are buying beer to go. People are sitting down. For us, some people are just picking up burgers from our burger window. So they get to kind of slowly engage with people, but not have kind of the full responsibility of carrying a tray to somebody's table full of beverages and having to talk at length about the beer. So they may not have beer knowledge or hospitality experience, but they get to kind of learn from the team and kind of dip their toes into serving. And as Becky mentioned, the kind of canning line operations are big at our facilities. So the off-packing job, putting pack techs on cans, building flats of beer, putting them in the cooler, is kind of where we see the entry-level work in our business. But also engaging in events as well. Events are a great opportunity to participate in a brewery, but it may not be a full-time job. It could be very casual, and breweries always need help with beer festivals, kind of offsite events that happen throughout the year, tastings, and that can also be entry level, but brand ambassadorship as well. So asking breweries, basically, if I were to create content for you, would you pay me or give me free product? So a lot of people also engage with breweries that way, where I don't really want to work full time, but I think I can take phenomenal photos, and maybe they have some photography experience, but maybe they don't have social media experience. So there's tons of creative ways to maybe not have brewery experience, and it might be entry level, but you could create value to these businesses.
And that, I would say, sort of, Ken, to what you had asked us about, what's in other cities like Edmonton. For a lot of breweries, if they're just, let's say from Calgary, and we're just kind of trying to get into the Edmonton market, brand ambassadorship is a really a common thing that we're looking for in other cities, because we might not have full-time or part-time folks in that city. So if we're looking for somebody to assist maybe 20 hours a month to help out at a festival we might go to in Edmonton, things like that, it's a really great opportunity to try and find. And if it's a good foot in the door. And even if you don't see that listing, let's say there's a Calgary brewery and they're going to a beer festival in Edmonton, and you don't know if they have anybody working, reach out and say, hey, I'm interested in being an ambassador for your company in Edmonton. What do what's going on? What do you haven't, are you, and then look out for anybody. And that's we've had people, our current, we have a full-time salesperson in Edmonton, and that's how they started working with us, is they reached out to us on Instagram, asked some questions. We were in town for an event, and they said, hey, could I stop by and maybe meet you and have a beer? Said, absolutely. This is what time we'll be there. And now they work for us full time. So those, always reach out and ask questions if people are in the area, and you can maybe find yourself in, an opportunity like that.
Thank you. I wish every industry was like this. So much more welcoming. And even if you don't get it, you at least try it. And then there was people there to be like, yeah, sure, let's give it a go. Let's see what happens here. That's really great. As kind of the new within these last 5 years, getting going, all those kinds of things, do you guys implement inclusive practices like hiring inclusively, seeking those audiences? I know we kind of went over that a little bit, but more so if you do, what kind of benefits have you seen from hiring inclusively?
Aaron, go for
Sorry.
it. You're
Sure. We are something we've been working on, and I know it's something that Eight and Annex and lots of other breweries in the city and the province have been working on as well. We have changed a lot of our hiring practices, and the ones that I will hear for you today of not starting with a resume, just like Erica said, that was one very quick thing that we did. Hosting group interviews for certain positions was another one that we've implemented to try and just reduce barriers. And that was actually at the suggestion of Annex when I leaned on Erica a little bit just to ask her what they had some success with. So they were willing to share that with us. Doing some phone interviews. So giving someone a shout on the phone prior to having them down, really walking them through what we were looking for, and then also offering them maybe a less stressful environment, ask some questions over the phone has been really great as well. And then ourselves, like personally here, myself and some others, including both Becky and Erica on the line here, we've also been working to create an organization here in Alberta called Hop Forward Society. And our entire goal is to make the beer industry more inclusive, more diverse, more accessible, and more equitable. So there is funding available out there right now. If you are a person of color, if you are a member of the LGBTQ2S+ community, or you are a person with a disability, there is funding out there. It is awarded annually. We have two grants awarded on an annual basis, and then we do also have a small amount of money that we award throughout the year to try and help reduce barriers for folks entering the craft beer industry. So I know Becky mentioned the certification that you require to work in the tap room. It's called a ProServe. It costs, I think, $60 or something like that. That would be something you could apply for funding for, so you could take that barrier right out of there for yourself. It can be used for lots of other things as well. There are some options out there. We're not the only organization like that either. There are others, but that would just be one that I know we're all personally familiar with.
Super cool. Erica, I saw you on mute.
Oh, I was just gonna, it just froze there for a second for me, but I was just going to agree with Aaron. What Aaron said is kind of in line with the practices that we're working on and that we have implemented as well.
Nice.
And I think us, I know us on the call, we're all very similar, but trying to have that transparency to who you are as people and businesses at the forefront, so that if somebody is interested to work with you, is that they can easily discover who you are and what your values are. And we try to make that clear in everyday practices and things like that, very transparent about what the industry is like, in our communication, in our documentation. So if somebody does have an interest to work with us too, it's very transparent about what we stand for. I think when you visit our breweries, I think there's a lot of practices that you'll see to make it inclusive spaces. I think everybody really works at that. And, looking at breweries and the kind of community work they do and memberships that we're a part of, we all work with Hop Forward and are members of that. So we have dollars directly towards great organizations like that. So, and everything is always growing and continuing to put that at the forefront and make progress on that.
Awesome. Thank you. And I just want to let Ken and iPad know, if you are wanting to get your ProServe and you do live in Edmonton, you can actually take it for free from the Edmonton Food Bank, their Beyond Food program. So if that is something you're interested in, they also have a bunch of different things you can take as well, like first aid and things like that. And all that information is in the chat. I think I know the answer to this, but would you guys say that mentorship is a common practice in this industry?
I would say yes, especially when when I think about working at 88, sort of just a natural, it's just a thing you'll naturally find is mentorship. because we're, you know, us as founders and owners are constantly learning and also getting mentorship from people in the industry. You know, things that Erica and Erin say on this call is like mentorship to me today, when I think about that. So it's definitely a part of that. Mentorship and growth is a big focus, because we're all sort of doing this together, learning together as we grow. And yeah, so I think it is, in my experience, whether or not that's, I guess from 88, whether or not that's sort of a formalized process, I would say maybe not really as it stands for me today, but it is there.
And that's great. Even if it's not formalized, it's like having somebody to be able to lean on, which it sounds like just the brewing industry in general is a pretty tight-knit community and everybody kind of leans on each other. So that in itself can be helpful for somebody trying to get into a inclusive workforce.
Yeah, I think at Annex, we have kind of a summer student program dedicated to our summer brewer. That's mostly a mentorship program. It's structured around training and facilitating the skills to become a brewer. But we've seen a lot of success with that. And I'm not sure if you're aware of the Canada Summer Jobs Program. It's mostly for students and people under the age of 30. But a big part of kind of your agreement with the government is that you provide mentorship to these to youth. And so we've kind of developed a program for our summer student that is a big mentorship program as well. So, and like Becky said, like a lot of this is through the efforts of management as well. So having a lot of direct reporting to a manager, and a lot of the meetings being not just what's your productivity level, but how are you doing as a manager? How are you feeling? What can we help you with? What skill sets would you like to develop? And development of myself and others is one of our guiding principles at Annex. And so we're always seeking individuals who want to learn and grow. And we facilitate that in our company meetings with individuals, and at performance reviews as well.
That is a good point to what Erica said about the sort of those grant program that exist for a specific, you know, age range of people. We do utilize those things at 88 too. And sometimes I guess I just don't frame my brain to think of it as sort of mentorship, but we often have, you know, summer students who are maybe doing, you know, they might be doing the brewing program at Olds College, things like that. And they're coming essentially to work sort of full-time for summer, and what I guess that it would be seen sort of as a mentorship. I maybe just don't frame the language like that, I suppose, too.
Yeah, ours would be very similar. We do have some very specific roles that we hire for through the Canada Summer Jobs Grant and a couple other grants that we've been fortunate enough to receive, where that was very much like the purpose of that position. And then on a more like day-to-day ongoing basis, much like Eric said, much like Becky said, it's really just about the culture in the space and how are we meeting with people and how are we checking in with them to make sure that they're getting what they need. And that's something that we have had to seek mentorship for ourselves as the owners and as the kind of leadership team, because we don't come from I don't have any education formally in management or in managing people. I don't have a degree in HR and human resources. So that's something that we seek mentorship from our peers. Like I ask Becky and Erica questions all the time. How do you do this? Did this work for you? What should I do? I've never had to deal with this all the time. So we seek that mentorship informally with our peers and then formally through other avenues as well. And then try and feed that down into our teams and how we run our business.
Thank you. I'm keeping everybody way too long because this has been really wonderful. So just one last question, unless anybody else has any. What is one piece of advice that you would give someone seeking a job in your industry?
Thinking.
I would say don't let the postings like limit you. I think Becky and Erica and I think we all touched on this to some degree, but just because you don't see something on a web page or on a social media post that you feel is a perfect fit for you and what you're looking for, I would not let that limit you from reaching out to a business that you think would be a good fit for you, even if it's to have a pint or go for a coffee and just talk about opportunities that maybe might exist at a future date in their space.
I would say look for culture, not job titles.
I would say don't worry about beer knowledge. Don't worry if you don't know the difference between an IPA or a pale ale. Don't worry about those things. It's about sort of a culture, and that's a big fit for us. So don't worry about beer knowledge. I don't ever want that to deter somebody. And I actually asked some of my colleagues a couple of things the other day for a presentation, and somebody also said that if you are working at a brewery or, you know, a small business, and you're interested in doing something else, or you want to ask if you can help out, do it, because there will be stuff to do and that can lead you on different paths. There will always be work to come your way if you're interested.
Love all of that. That is great. Thank you all so much for doing this. It's been really great. And also just like, now I'm like, okay, we have so many more avenues to go. Let's get into the brewing industry in Edmonton more. Because it sounds wonderful. And I also think that at least in my mind, there's for sure a misconception about the brewing industry, that it's very like rough and gruff, and, you know, I don't know who wants to work there if you're not this rough and gruff kind of individual, but it does not sound like that at all. So that's really nice to hear as well.
Yeah, and this is the kind of thing I think, Jasmine, that we all really appreciate too, because it lets us share and talk about it and let people really get a good picture of what it is. And it's not just a rough sort of, you know, in overalls kind of thing. It's a big thing. Lots of types of jobs are available.
For sure. That's awesome. Last opportunity for any questions, or I can finally let you all go.
I think I'm good. Thank you very much for answering the questions we did have, though.
Thanks for coming, Ken and iPad. I think I know who you are, but that's okay. And all of you for participating. This has been really great, and I'm certain that we're going to connect in the near future.